A storm seems to be brewing within the Conservative Party in the UK. MPs have accused Home Secretary Suella Braverman of undermining Rishi Sunak's authority. They say that she is making a bid for the future leadership of the party. Now, during a National Conservatism conference in London, Braverman put out a highly personal blueprint for a political philosophy to take on the radical left. Now, as per reports, this has been interpreted as her pitch to be the right's next candidate. Two protesters also interrupted her speech on curbing immigration in London on Monday. They were escorted out of the building shortly after.
Alternative accommodation.
The MPs are of the opinion that Sunak should not let Braverman undermine him. They feel that he should warn her to stick to her role and focus on the problems with the immigration system. Another minister said that she was not even waiting for the elections and that she was pitching for Prime Minister right now. One minister said that Rishi Sunak needs to make it clear to her that she is either a team player or a backbencher. Now, for more on this, we are being joined by our correspondent Alex Isaac from London. We're also being joined by Adam Schwartz from London. Adam is a writer and a political commentator. Welcome to the broadcast, both of you. Alex, I would like to start with you. In the current climate, do you think any of the Tory members are in a position to back Suella Braverman, that is, over Rishi Sunak?
Well, there is always potential for any member to back Suella Braverman over Rishi Sunak, as he was never the first choice when after Boris Johnson left power, and he has come into that role and grown quite a bit within that position. In the last couple of weeks, though, we have seen a bit of a push towards more, as they say, right-wing policies, and Suella Braverman in her speech has also suggested that that is what she wants the Conservative Party going forward, and she did mention quite a few things that have been seen as quite a different rhetoric than Rishi Sunak has been pointing out over his term. So there are going to be some of those backbenchers and MPs who really do want to move forward, be a bit more right-wing, a bit more forward conservative, as they would be, to take themselves away from Labour in the run-up to the general election.
Right, that's interesting. Adam, a team player or a backbencher, which one do you think Suella Braverman's fate has in store?
Well, I think really that's the crucial question at the heart of what we've seen over the last day. I would say that Suella Braverman, even her presence at this conference where she made the speech, was deeply inappropriate and highly provocative. This organisational national conservatism, which is sort of modelled on American-style political action groups, is really designed to kind of push the Conservative Party in a more right-wing direction on certain sort of policies related to what it would call traditional values. Other people would refer to them as culture wars. But it hosted a huge number of mainly backbench MPs who were quite sort of critical of government policy, and I think the general tone of the conference was quite critical. So I think, given the fact that you have a serving senior government minister who was actually there, was actually quite provocative and I would say quite destabilising for the government. I think Sunak is going to have to kind of make quite a difficult choice with Braverman. He originally actually did her quite a big favour in terms of bringing her back into cabinet. If you remember, she actually resigned a few days before Rishi Sunak became Prime Minister due to breaching the ministerial code over disclosing sensitive information. So the fact that he brought her back in, I think, was sort of a recognition that he needed to sort of appease people on the right of the Conservative Party. But I think clearly, she is kind of jumping the gun here in terms of trying to kind of position herself as a successor. And I think in doing so, it's sort of a public acknowledgement that she thinks the Conservative Party will likely need to replace the Prime Minister or its leader at some point. So I think Sunak is going to have to face quite a difficult decision in terms of whether he keeps her in government or wants to actually push her to the sidelines, to the backbenches.
All right, Alex, let's shift from 10 Downing to the streets of London now. What is the public feeling? Do they want to see Braverman as the next Tory leader?
She doesn't have a huge amount of support. For some, obviously, her immigration policies, that they are slightly right-wing, should we say, are definitely right of centre, when they are suggesting that all illegal immigrants should not be coming over. There's talk about those boats that keep coming over, and also we do keep forgetting about the legal migration issues as well. Like, none of that has been resolved in the time that she has been pushing for it. Rwanda plan, another one of those policies that she's been pushing for that hasn't got off the ground, and a lot of people are not for at all. So the UK public do seem to show that actually maybe the Conservative Party are waning in their support in general, not just for Suella Braverman. Obviously, we just saw at the local elections that they lost a lot of seats, and Labour and Lib Dem did gain quite a few as well. So it does feel that a lot of the UK public are moving away from the Tory party.
Right. Adam, let's deep dive here a little. If for once we consider that Braverman is trying to make a pitch for the next right-wing candidate, there is a pattern we have noticed that is actually common in a lot of right-wing leaders across the world: the nationalism element. She poses immigration issue as a threat to UK's national character. She says that multiculturalism could lead to a disaster, and also claims that political correctness is letting Islamist terrorists grow in the country. Is this a strategy of sorts for next year's election? How do you see it?
I think you're absolutely right to draw parallels to other sort of right-wing leaders and ministers and movements really around the world. And I think there's sort of a tendency to actually move to even more further extremes, which is a general tendency, I would say, of populism, because I would say that, generally populist policies don't have a great success in terms of actually delivering the results that they promise, which is why they try to keep on pushing sort of policies towards the extreme. And I would say that, really Braverman's strategy is trying to focus on Conservative Party members rather than the electorate, because really if you look at the polling of Conservative Party members in terms of their interests, in terms of what their priorities are, in terms of what they want the government to be focusing on, there's actually a big discrepancy between that and the general public. And I think really Braverman, clearly by looking at her speech in terms of what she focused on, she talked about sort of radical gender ideologies, she talked about the need of migrants to integrate and sort of take on a new British kind of personality or role. I talked about law and order. All of those which we know are things that Conservative Party members really care about. But actually, if you look at the things that polling shows that the wider public care about, their inflation, their sluggish growth in terms of the economy, it's deteriorating public services, it's the high cost of living. And I think all of those are areas which ultimately the government is responsible for delivering on. So clearly, Braverman is not really pitching, I would say, at the moment to a wider public, but actually she's looking to try to look at what are the next steps she needs to do in terms of trying to get to the actual leadership of the party. But I think ultimately, it's quite a short-termist strategy, because, she will try to do that to get into a leadership position, whether that is before the election or most likely after the election, when she'd be taking on a role as leader of the opposition. But of course, even if you get to that role, you would need to actually pitch to the public. So I think, Braverman also, her strategy is quite short-term.
Absolutely. Adam Schwartz and Alex Isa, thank you for getting us all those insights and discussions. Thank you for joining us on this broadcast.